Today we welcome a certain girl with no name, a debut author with one of the most extraordinary journeys you'll ever see. She never was set up to become a writer. Her background was with designing actually, but everything changed after the sudden passing of a close friend of hers. And she clearly wasn't expecting that her life will change forever after that. The message she received from her friend became the spark for her debut work, The Dead Man Drinks, a true story collection of encounters with many different people whose words are as valid as anyone's. This author is one that came with a really big twist, and she's more than open to share that with us. So welcome to Writing Inspiration with Marquee Books. Hello, girl with no name. How are you? How do you feel today?
I'm feeling great, Daniel. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
And thank you so much for coming and joining us. So tell me, how did it start? What made you want to become a writer?
Okay, well, brace yourselves because you might want to pour yourself a drink. I never wanted to write. I didn't go to school for that. My background is actually in design. But, however, a friend of mine had died suddenly, and she always wanted to write a book. Well, as the story goes, as you'll find out what my book is about, that I'm able to connect with people who have passed away. And this particular friend appeared to me about 3 months after she had passed away, and she told me that I needed to write this book. I have 20 years of stories that had, with different spirits, and mostly spirits, people I knew or people who my friends, relatives and such had appeared to me with a message, a very important message for their person. And she said I needed to compile these stories and put them in a book. And I'm like, no, I don't have any intention to write a book. I'm not a writer. And she said, no, I will help you from the other side, which is an important part of the story, is that when people die, they still have work to do. Nobody's laying around on clouds. They're still working their craft, whatever their talent was while they were here on earth. They're still working that, they can help all of us, which is part of the story's message. So I'm basically fulfilling her dream of writing this book. And she is one of the narrators in the book as the Phantom Reporter.
I see.
So that is how it began.
I'm really sorry for your friend, but it's very interesting. So basically, the idea for writing a book with many perspectives of other ghosts was from her, or you turned the book into that later?
Well, so I'm going to backtrack a little bit here. So 20 years ago, my brother was killed, which I believe murder. It's an unsolved mystery, so we don't know for sure. And this is part of the story that I want the reader, I involve the reader to help me solve his, mysterious death. And 3 days after he was killed, that, my family had found out, he popped into my kitchen. So it seems like everybody pops into the kitchen, He popped into my kitchen, and to his surprise and to my surprise, I could hear him. And as much to his surprise that I could hear him. Like, he's like, oh my gosh, she can hear me. Because when we die, nobody really knows what happens. I mean, now I know what happens, but most of us don't know what happens. So he was a little bit shocked that I could hear him. I could feel his presence. And he began telling me things from that point on, what happens, from the moment we die. So he brought me, like I said, these souls over the years. And then fast forward, 5 years ago, I moved into this old, dilapidated 1800s Victorian with my fiance, who is a master builder, and we decided to renovate this home, and with the intention of flipping the house. Okay, everybody knows what a flip is. I said, please, since I was a designer, I thought I can help design, I can help do the labor, and we'll, fix this house up and sell it. Well, as a song by the Eagles, Hotel California, you can check in, but you can never leave. That's what happened to us. After about a week, we were like, okay, we're not leaving this house. We're not flipping it. We're going to fix it up, and we're living here. Like, I honestly felt like I was just drawn to this house, like a magnet. I was like, I don't know what it is about this house, but I need to live there. So we start renovating the house, and this crazy thing started happening. So all the stories from the past years just seemed, they were great stories. But once we got in this house, everything just ramped up, just started going crazy. And I won't reveal what we found in the wall, but there was something we found in the wall in the attic that released ghosts into the house. So then I had one time frame where ghosts were around me, but it was mostly just more spirits of people I knew. So I was never afraid or anything. And the ghost in this house started causing trips and falls, and we were falling, and all this downstairs, and our little dog, our little 4-pound Yorkie, she was falling. And I called on my brother. I said, I need help, because obviously there was some ghost in the house that thought we were destructing the house. It's just destroying it. So as I think most people perceive an old house as having ghosts. I don't know why we think that, but if I know somebody that lives in a 100-year-old house, I'm like, oh, are there ghosts in their house? So anyway, the man's name, which I found out through the records, is Leander Stone, which I love that name. So Leander Stone was the man, and he was only in his 30s when he had this house built, because people back then, they didn't, live as long as we do. So back then, you're in your 30s, he's building this grand Victorian. So I asked my brother, like, can you take care of the situation? So, my brother's a spirit. So he's in the afterlife, if you can imagine, walks over and introduces himself to this old, this ghost who's like perceivably 200 years old. And he introduces himself and lets him know that we're not destroying his house. We are renovating his house and restoring it to its original beauty. So Leander Stone steps back, in his 1800s verbiage, and takes a new look. Oh, that's fascinating. So now he understands we're not destroying his house, we're rebuilding it. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm going on, but I right now I can feel a lot of spirits around me. So they're all trying to say something. Okay, so I wrote this whole book from our island in our kitchen, which is staged as a bar. So our whole kitchen feels like an old speakeasy, which I think you're younger, so I don't know if you know what a speakeasy is, but back in the days of Prohibition, when they didn't allow alcohol, there were these speakeasies that were these secret hidden. You had to have a password to get in, where they had, you could still get alcohol that people were making, like moonshine. So anyway, this whole kitchen's, posed as a bar. And so this is why I wrote the entire book. So all of a sudden I'm sitting here, and I was typing into the wee hours of the night, sometimes until 4 a.m. And I could start hearing, different spirits coming around who I have talked to in the past years would come up, and they would recall their story to me. It had been 20 years, so I had to recall all these stories. Then the one night, the ghost of Leander Stone, I could hear him speaking to me in the verbiage of the 1800s, which they spoke quite differently than we do now. So I was like, okay, now I can hear Leander Stone. This is really cool. I am speaking to the man who originally masterminded the creation of the Victorian, where I now live and walk the halls. And it's hard not to think, I'm walking up the stairway. My hand is going up the rail of the same railing that Leander Stone had his hand on. I'm sleeping in the bedroom where Leander Stone slept, a man from the 1800s. Like, this to me is just crazy. And then I could put myself in his shoes and think, he must think this is crazy. He died, I don't even know, over 100 years ago. And now there's a girl writing a book that he's a character in. So this whole thing is just crazy, but it's all true. Every story is true, so much that you could not even make these stories up. So the spirits, what they're trying to show me is the abilities, when someone dies, what abilities do they have? They don't just die and they're not just buried or cremated. They still have abilities as a spirit to come around all of us, to come around their family, their friends, help us, guide us. They're there for comfort. So this is what, this is the whole moral of the story, is they're coming around to show what abilities they still have. So let me see what I've missed. Okay, so there's a painting that we found in the attic. Okay. When we came to the estate sale. Before we officially moved in, we came to their estate sale. They were selling the house. They had this estate sale. In the attic, there's a painting that was, the typical flipped upside down, covered in dust, covered in, had to kind of dig through the rubble to find it. We flip it over, and there's a man an aristocrat from turns out, like 1600s in this painting. Now, he is the man on the cover of the book. So this guy, he looked quite disturbed. Okay, his face was red. He was not happy, which, if you can imagine, he wouldn't want your photograph, buried in the attic, basically disrespected. So this man, he now is front and center in the parlor when you walk in the front door. His eyes follow wherever you go. His eyes will follow anyone that walks through the room. His eyes can look at you seated and look at me over in the corner at the same time. Every single person, including a couple children, ran out of the room screaming because it's a little bit eerie. So this man, I'm not kidding. And some of the covers of the book, as I stayed on the back, his eyes will follow, but only in special editions, but it's random. I don't know whose cover is going to follow, the eye's going to follow on whose art. But he is a character in the book. He speaks to me in riddles. So I would actually, when I was writing, I could hear him in a poetic rhyming form with cryptic messages speak to me in riddles. So I had spoken to this man from India who was a psychic, like a third generation psychic, and he confirmed that, yes, he said there is a spirit attached to that painting, and that's why it appears that his eyes follow. It's not that the painting is painted so precisely that the artist made it look like the eyes follow. He said there's an actual spirit attached to the painting, and that's why it looks like the eyes are following, which is really cool. And so I'm sure that's the spirit who's speaking to me in riddles.
But why in riddle?
Oh, I think this more, I don't know. I'd have to ask him. I think it makes it more interesting. And sometimes I can hear the messages easier if it's in like a rhyming form. So that's why I think it does make it more interesting. It's more of a poem that you have to figure out the clues versus someone just spelling it out. Because one of the messages that I received from people who have died, they said all of us have it way too easy. Like, we don't have to use our brain, because think about it. You can Google, you can use AI, you can get your answer to any question in, a second. And they're like, no. Humans, use your brains, figure things out. So there's a lot of cryptic clues and messages throughout the book that the reader needs to figure out. And it makes it more interesting because they're helping solve these riddles. And one of the clues they gave me was that 3 people associated with the house now were associated with the house somehow back in the 1800s. So I don't know if you believe in that we come back and live again. Some people believe in that and some people don't. But it makes it an interest, if you're open your mind, it makes it interesting whether you believe in it or not, in it or not.
I do believe it would be more interesting if it was like that.
Yes. Well, think about love at first sight, or even with a friend. Sometimes a friend, you'll meet someone and you feel like you've been best friends and you've only known them, in one night. You're like, wow, it feels like this is my best friend. Or love at first sight is very common. Someone doesn't understand why they feel like they love a person, immediately. So it's an interesting thought. I can't say for sure. After going through this entire book, I feel it is true that we come back. But again, it's up to the reader to decide. Everybody can have their own opinion on that. So those kind of stories were revealed to me, I should say.
Okay. That's
pretty
great.
This isn't too much, is it? This is
Yeah.
and that's why they...
Uh-huh.
No, I was going to say that's why they tell me to write on the back, pour yourself a drink, you might need one. And then also the chills. They had the chills in brackets that they told me to put throughout the book. And I've had a lot of reports of people are getting chills when they're reading on different, goosebumps on different parts of the book. And also your loved ones are standing by, because we all have someone that's passed away. And they try to give us signs, like everybody wants a sign, but the person's literally standing there metaphorically, waving their hands, but nobody's not recognizing that they're there. They're leaving a message, but people don't recognize the message. So it says your loved ones are standing by, because reports I've been given from the people that have read the book so far, they said, no, I'm starting to get messages. My one friend said, I know my brother is giving me 3 messages. He recognizes the signs since he's read the book, because it opens your mind and gives you examples, of how they do it. So they'll give a chill if the spirit of someone passes by you. That's what gives you the chill or the goosebumps.
Yeah. I understand.
It's all
Okay.
friendly. It's someone you know. You know, a ghost isn't just going to pop into the reader's house. It's someone they know. So
Of
it's more of a
course.
comforting, or they might start tearing up and they don't realize why they're tearing, but it's because that emotion of that spirit or soul is feeling an emotion, it's bringing an emotion on them.
Yeah, I can understand. Hearing your story, at least you have like infinite source of inspiration, basically, and and a lot of help.
Yes, a lot of help. So this whole story, every time I tried to hire, getting back to the writing process, when I tried to hire different people to help me, ghostwriters, editors, book cover designers, such, I was taking down different paths that I didn't feel were right. Well, what I was told, no, because, I hate to say it, but people that have lived a full life and died, they have more wisdom than people still living because they have a whole new viewpoint of life.
That sounds logical.
Yeah. So now, I don't know you again because you seem young. Do you know who Ernest Hemingway is?
Of course, he's a famous writer.
Okay, yes, a famous writer. So you might not believe this, but the spirit of Ernest Hemingway guided me. Now he made me do the work, but he guided me. Now I had to go on and research how did he, I was like guided to a YouTube video, Ernest Hemingway's top 7 writing tips or such. But there's a story within the book that we were told that we were out in the yard one day and this guy pulls up in his car with 2 women with him. He said, "Oh, I used to live in that house, for 20 years as a kid into his 20s." And he said, "Oh, can we please walk through there?" And it was still under renovation. So we thought, sure, we weren't living in the house quite yet. So he started telling us different stories that his brother had researched the house. And he had said that Ernest Hemingway's second wife lived in our house as a 5-year-old. So I did a little research. Yeah. And this is why, Ernest Hemingway comes into play. And I'm explaining why, because I'm sure people are scoffing like, oh, sure, Ernest Hemingway, spoke to her. But so I decided I'm going to contact, which I don't usually do this, but I thought I'm going to call out to his second wife, Pauline Pfeiffer, and see if she'll come help me. So I found out that she herself was an editor of Vogue magazine and Vanity Fair. So I thought I'm going to call on her for a little fashion advice. Those are the 2 top fashion magazines. So I thought I'll see what she has to say. Well, anyway, I got a response because I thought, who in the heck's calling on her? Probably nobody, because most people don't try to contact someone who's passed away. And she's like, she died over 100 years ago. So that nobody else is calling out to her. But if you call out someone's name, they can hear you. It's kind of like an invitation, so to speak. So no different if I sent you an email invite or, a message on your phone invite. So then I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to go ahead and call out for Ernest Hemingway because 3 of his 4 wives were from St. Louis, Missouri, which is where the house is, where I live. So I thought, okay, Ernest Hemingway had some fascination with St. Louis women. So I don't think he'll be able to resist. So I thought I'll call out for Ernest Hemingway. And then lo and behold, I won't tell the rest of the story. It's a chapter in the book, but his name started appearing to me in strange ways. And this is part of my way that I communicate. I've kind of put together my own system of knowing, through a song, if I go into a bookstore and his book falls off the shelf after I just tried to contact him, little things like that. So I do believe that Ernest Hemingway helped guide me through. And the one story went to our friend's house, which was 3 hours away, this like river house, kind of a secluded river house. And in the middle of the night, I couldn't sleep. And I went to go into the front room to sit in the recliner. There was a book turned face down. And I flipped the book over. Out of all the books in the entire world, it said the biography of Ernest Hemingway. Okay. And I was just like, no, this cannot possibly be. Like, why do they have the book of Ernest Hemingway out of all the possible books they could possibly have? It was one book. And I heard clearly in my head, the way I get the messages, it said, there's a quote pertaining to your book. I opened the page and it says, in order to write about life, you must have lived it, by Ernest Hemingway. And I thought, that sums up my book perfectly, because in order to write about life, these people have lived a full life and then they've died. So I did get permission I called the Ernest Hemingway company and told them the entire story. So they gave me the permission to use his quote on the back of my book, which to me is just, I can't even believe it. Like of all the people like, I don't want any living person's quote on the back of my book. I want Ernest Hemingway's, and I had permission to use it. So to me, that was a huge, win. But
I thought his work was already free use because it had more than 100 years.
Oh, okay. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, I think so. Usually, the copyrights last 100 years usually.
Okay, got it. I didn't want to use it just on my own, and they actually thanked me for asking for permission because I think a lot of people do use his, his quotes and all that. But so the writing process was quite grueling, though. I had no idea how long it takes to write, and I just wanted to say to anyone listening that support an author, whether it's my book or another book, because the amount of hours it takes to go, not only the story, the story in itself, but the actual writing process and the editing process and everything that goes in, formatting, cover design. I don't think a reader would have any idea how many hours, literally thousands of hours that go into writing a book. So support an author that took their time, and the talent to write a book, because it was way more than I could ever imagine.
Yeah. So tell me, did you ever thought this will be the kind of thing that will happen in your life?
Never. And I never even, I never crossed my mind. Although I used to tell stories, and then I would say, I would tell a story about someone that, visited me, a person who had passed away. And then I would say, I have so many stories, I could write a book. But I honestly never thought about sitting down to write a book, because even to write an email or a text message, sometimes it takes, it's wow, I got to rewrite this. It takes longer than you think it would. So no, I never thought I would write. And I also never thought I would have this experience in my life, which is another lesson to anyone listening, that we should just be open to crazy things can just come into your life, things that aren't even in your imagination. Because I used to pray to God. I wanted to be a psychic. I wanted to know my future, because I was always a little bit anxious about the future. I didn't need to know the exact, but I just wanted to know, when am I going to meet the guy? When am I going to get the job? Am I going to be okay? Just general questions. And my friends and I, in high school, college age, we would go visit a psychic maybe once a year, just for entertainment, just to see what she had to say. And so I would pray for that. But then, I write in the book, I'm okay, well, God had another plan. I'm not psychic. I don't see into the future. Never even knew about the possibility that I could communicate with somebody who's passed on, which I feel I'm a very lucky person, because it's comforting to know when somebody passes on. Because every single person I know, and usually all of my friends' parents, my friends, a lot of people show up because there's no one else they can appear to. So, they appear usually right after they die and tell me something, and they're really just appearing to let me know they're okay, and that, to pass the message on to whomever, but they just want to let us know they're okay and they made it somewhere. And then, they have other messages as well, but that's the main message, that someone wants to let us know. And I think that's what we want, we want to know that as well, especially our pets. So there's 9 pet stories within the book, because the death of a pet is sometimes more traumatic to some people than a person.
Every people react differently to that. That's completely true.
Yes, absolutely. But a pet seems like a child. Yes. They're so cute and little, and doesn't matter how old they are. They just feel like this precious little toddler kind of feeling. And we just want to know that they're taken care of. So there's the pet stories in there.
So, yeah. I have this question. Do you have any advice for new writers starting right now that you want to share?
For new writers?
Yeah.
Well, my main advice would be to just use your own voice. And I don't really believe in the ghost. Well, I shouldn't really say this, but use your own voice and just speak as you would speak. Just don't let somebody rewrite your words, because you don't want to change your own verbiage. And I think now and today, even just the way we can all dress or just act, just be yourself, and just, it's okay just to be yourself and just write your own words. You don't need somebody else to come in and change your words to a vocabulary that you would not use if you were just speaking. That would be my main advice, because that's what we like. Everybody's an individual, and I enjoy hearing different people. And even if, Theo Vaughn, let's say, he's a podcaster. he's just himself, just sitting there. He's a casual guy, just talking. And I think that's why people like him, just because he's like, this is who I am. He's not trying to be somebody he's not. He's just an example that popped in my head. But I would say just write and just be themselves and don't feel like they have to hire someone to come in and change their words.
That sounds great.
Yeah, do you agree? Like, look at you. Like, your personality, immediately when I watched your videos, I was like, I love this guy. Like, you're very energetic and, just real, and you can tell you really have passion in what you're doing. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Actually, I never heard that before.
Oh, my goodness.
I actually think I lack some emotion.
Oh, I didn't feel that at all, but...
So tell me, do you have like a writing routine, or anytime you heard something, you immediately go start writing?
Yeah, I do think it's a good idea to have that, I had my computer on at all times, so I could just hop on there and start typing. Now, I wish I was better at the voice, just voicing it into the Word document, but I didn't do so well like speaking out loud. I felt odd doing that, but I think that would be a much quicker process, unless you're a super fast typer, which I'm not. So I think that could speed up the process if you can just speak into the document. But I'm not, like I said, I'm not a very good typist. So it took me a little longer.
Actually, I was recommended that too, like recording your, like not reading, but narrating the book, and then using AI to transcribe everything you said on a document.
Now, I did not figure this out until later, but I did finally use Grammarly, which I liked because that caught, like I said, I'm not the greatest typist, so there might have been a misspelled word or something, but that caught a lot of things. I liked using that. And you mentioned narrators. I don't think I mentioned this, but the book is narrated by the way I wrote the book after about 25 edits, by the way. And I learned this from Ernest Hemingway. He said on his last edit, he would take out about a third of his writing. He would take it out of the book because he just wanted to get to the point. He didn't want to fluff it up with a lot of words that aren't necessary. So after just numerous edits, the book just kind of came into its own the way it was written, which is a tour of the house. And as I tour, I tell the stories. But the ghost of Leander Stone narrates the house renovation stories. My brother, the modern day spirit, narrates watching his sister, me. He's like, oh, there she is down there. Now here's what she's doing. And so he's narrating, watching me, which is what all of our spirits do. They still watch over us. They don't miss a birthday. They don't miss a wedding. They don't miss a birth of a child, that kind of thing. And then every day, if we need help, they're here. So he narrates, and then the mystery ghost narrates, and then the man in the painting, speaks in poems, like I said. And then the phantom reporter narrates. And then Tommy's father, he's a phantom sergeant. His dad was here watching over as we renovated. And I could clearly hear him, which for some reason, people that were in the military, I can hear them very clearly. But I think it's because they have a strong energy. They have a strong, strength about them. Somebody that can go in the military, which I wouldn't last a day, but they're disciplined, and because of their personality type, they can get messages to me. And then the phantom designer was a friend of mine who helped redesign the house. So he's also in the book as a sub character. I think this is what I've been told from just various people I've spoken to. I don't know if there's another book out there where, people that aren't living actually are narrating the story. So I'm a living character. My best friend's a living character in the book. And
I think there are some, but I don't think people really tell you that. But I wouldn't doubt at all that there are books like that out there. But we don't. We never knew. We never know. Yeah,
there might be somewhere, but I don't think it's common, especially when it's a true story. Because I know the infamous Christmas story with the ghosts that appear, to Scrooge and all that. But this is a true story. Christmas Carol, that's it. I'm sure there is somewhere in the world. The one thing, this is a global topic because this is something that all of us have in common. It doesn't matter where we were born, which country. And I don't talk about religion in the book, but I do reference God. Whoever your God is, that's a God, an infinite source, a higher power. I reference God, but I don't reference religion because I think that's a personal choice of each reader. But I just noticed it was something that all of us struggle with when somebody dies. It's something that I don't really think the human mind can really understand.
It's a universal feeling.
Yes. So a person is here one day or 1 second, and the next second they're not. And it's very difficult to grasp that thought. So, but I do write it in a way that's uplifting, which was difficult because of the subject matter. So it actually, there is a character in the book called the Hidden Heckler. He's a reactive listener. He like is along with you, the reader, along the way on the story. And I think he reacts with blurting out a sentence here, reacting to whatever I just wrote or whomever is telling that story. And a lot of it, I think the reader will think, I was just thinking that myself, whatever he reacts to. And a lot of it is a bit humorous, which I'm trying to just make it a little uplifting because the people that die aren't sad at all. And that's the other message they want to get across. They're not sad. They're very happy, as a matter of fact. And even it doesn't matter how they died, when they died. Once you cross to the other side, everything makes perfect sense. And they don't want us to feel sad and depressed. They want us to feel, almost happy for them. As if your friend is on a trip to the Bahamas, you're going to be happy for your friend in the Bahamas, surrounded by his friends. So that's the kind of feeling that the message they keep over and over giving to me. So it's, the way it's written, the reader will definitely feel better after reading the book about just death, wondering where they're going to go, where the pet's going, where the relatives are. They will definitely feel better, even despite the topic.
I understand. Do you have a story of how you named your book?
So The Dead Man Drinks, if you look at the cover of the book, you can see the man in the painting. It appears his hand is reaching out of the frame and plucking, basically like putting his finger in that wine bottle, like if he's going to pluck it off the table. And I was guided one day to go into the front room, sit on the front sofa, hold my phone up, tilt it to the left, a little bit to the right. Here you go. Okay, click. I was guided by a ghost, basically. Now, I physically pressed the button myself, but I was guided on how to take this photo. So it was a panoramic shot. And I zoomed in and I thought, it looks like that guy is taking that wine bottle off the table. Like plucking is the word that comes to my mind. Well, I had a few photographers come out and try to retake that photo because it was just my camera phone. So it wasn't a high quality, photograph. And none of us we couldn't get it. Like we were helping, like move it to the left, move it to the right. No, move this there, move that there. Nothing. We could not recreate that photo. So something about that photo, the dead man drinks, he's taking that bottle off the table, hence drinking, which drinking could mean drinking water, drinking coffee, drinking alcohol. I don't know, because a lot of this is a mystery to me as well. And that's why I'm asking the reader as they read to help me figure out these clues. So there's another story in the book. It's called, let's see, hold on a second here. Down to Earth and Back to the Tavern. So I won't give away, but you can get a hint by the title. So I don't want to spoil the story, but there's little hints throughout that I think I know what the title means, but I'll wait and I'd rather let the reader make their own determination. So yeah, I was guided. That title is probably, this is something else to the writers out there, that's probably my 23rd title that I thought of before I came to that one. I kept trying to think of titles, and someone gave me the advice, write your story and the title will just come to you by the end of your writing. I was like, okay. And when I kept trying to force it and just kept trying to think, write down, jot down all these ideas. And I was like, no, that's not it. And then finally this one just appeared right when I was finishing up the book.
Okay. So I have another question. So tell me, what is your largest goal or dream as an author right now?
Let's see, my largest dream. Well, let's see. I would like this to have global recognition. I guess would possibly be printed in different languages.
Oh,
and then
nice.
I can't help but think that this will be turned into a streaming series, because the way I was guided to write it with these very, very short stories, I wrote it in a way that it's not just for the avid reader, not just for these, readers that love to read books. I wrote it in a way it's for anyone up and down my street who maybe never purchases a book or maybe buys one book a year or something, that these very, very short stories, because all of our attention spans are so short now because of the information that's just constantly bombarding us all day long. And that's why the reels, if you think about it, reels that, there might be a 1 hour video on YouTube, but people are looking at the reels that are literally seconds long, because that's all our attention is now. Our brains are just exploding basically with information. So I wrote these very short, some are only 2 or 3 pages long chapters, so that you could sit down, have a cup of coffee, read 1 or 2 literally in 5 minutes, and then you feel that you accomplished something. Hey, I just read a couple chapters. And they're individual stories, but yet woven through one, entire story. So the part of what I put through the book is God's infinite intelligence, meaning we're just a human trying to figure things out. But God's infinite intelligence, similar, think of AI. It can so quickly answer that a human couldn't even type that fast, couldn't even write the answer that fast. So God's infinite intelligence, somebody already has a plan. And this is what I think. Hopefully I'm not jinxing myself speaking this out loud, but it's basically written, setting it up for a streaming series with all these different individual stories. So that would be my ultimate, dream come true, you might say. But for now, I think, just to get this story and this message out to as many people as possible and kind of, unite all of us together across the world. So we all have this something in common and can agree, because what they're telling in these stories teaches us about life and what's really important. And I have to say, it's not what you hear on the news and in the media. That's not really what's important. What they're putting in our brains. This tells the true essence of what is important in someone's life. So
I understand.
That would be my goal.
Okay. So tell me, are you planning to write another book? Are you already getting new stories from other people?
Yes. So the second book, I already have 30,000 words written.
Oh.
And this book ends on a cliffhanger. So it ends with my brother back in Mexico. That's where he was killed. And it begins with him. He's alive, and then he's killed, and then he's back in Mexico to end the book. And it ends with his last second he was alive. He's explaining what it's like for someone to you're there, you're alive, and then in the next second you're on the other side. So he's explaining this to the reader as much as information he can tell, because there's rules over there. They can't tell us everything. So now he's on the other side, and he's explaining what happens, that when you die, here's what happens. You're on the other side as a spirit. Now he explains what happens, and then it ends on a cliffhanger and goes into book 2. So I already have 30,000 words written, but there's still a lot of editing and cover design and all that I need to do.
But the main book is basically done.
Oh, the main book is published already. Yeah, the first book, it's published on Book Baby. So
No. I mean that the second book is basically ready. I mean that you have already all the stories you need, just that it needs editing and processing. I think I could add a few more. It won't be as long as the first book. The first book is 47,000 words, and the second book I'm at 30,000. But I think that's okay not to have it as long. And then for book 3 and 4, it's going to be called The Dead Man Drinks with Friends. And those I want readers to submit their own stories, because anyone listening right now probably has at least one story. One story of something odd, a sign they received, something odd that happened, just something. And I personally love hearing other people's stories. So for the book 3 and 4, I would have readers submit their own stories, and it would just be compiled of those stories, because honestly, I'll need a break from writing. And I think it's good to get the community involved with, hearing other people's stories from all over the world would be really great. But most of the people I've met, once I tell them about the book, they'll tell me, "Oh, you won't believe this, but this happened to me once," and then they'll tell me their story. So that's my plan. So okay. That sounds great. So you already know how to start book 3 too.
Yes. And here's the other thing I will say to the writers out there, new writers.
Okay.
The first book is the most difficult.
It is.
Because my second book, I already flew through much quicker because I already know things, what to do and what not to do. So once you go through the first book, the next one, the following will be much easier. And I do believe everyone has a story to tell. Every single person has a story to tell, whether they write a book or not, but I think everyone should write down their story, even if they don't publish a book. Just even have something to leave behind that your, friends and family would read, or even just to share with your family and friends. There's so many things we don't know about each other. And I think everybody has an important story.
Yeah, it is. So tell me, can you tell us in which platforms we can get your books again?
I decided to only do a hardbound for now because I personally like hardbound books. I don't care for paperback. I feel like they're a throwaway. But this is so my heart. Yeah, and I know I've found out recently that some people like paperback, so I might do a paperback. But I felt like this book is a treasure of information. That's not just there aren't 10,000 other books with this information. So I just felt it's something somebody's going to want to hold on to and, display maybe on their shelf or mantle or coffee table. So I wanted a hardbound. That is on Book Baby. I don't know if a lot of people have heard of them, but they support independent authors, and their printing is a higher quality than a lot of the other printers, but they support independent authors because, to be honest, some of the other ones, the bigger ones, the author doesn't make very much money at all. Like I'm talking less than $2 a book, and they keep the money themselves, So Book Baby makes it where the author can at least make a little bit more. If let's face it, it's their time and effort that went into it, not the big corporation that's keeping all the money.
So you have only there right now?
So only there right now. Now the ebook is on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and other platforms. The ebook that's on, I think, 10 or 20 other platforms. But the hardbound is on Book Baby. And I do have to say, the people that have bought the hardbound are the ones that are telling me these really interesting things are happening, like job offers, business deal closed, meeting the man of her dreams. Like there's some kind of, I don't want to say magic, but I don't know how else to say it, to the book. My one friend told me she set the phone on her book and she received some kind of crazy phone call that she was waiting for when the phone was laying on the book. But I think it's because the spirits within are like the person's family spirit, spirits have this ability to attach to it and make things happen, which they can definitely do. And once you read the stories, you'll understand that. Otherwise, the ebook is available and it's on a lot of. You just plug it into Google and it'll pull up all the different sources. I was going to say the audiobook. I'm going to have that ready soon, probably in the next month.
Ooh,
I know a lot of people like to listen.
That will be great.
Yes.
This type of story in audio will be, it's the perfect match.
Okay, here's something else I might tell to the writers out there. I think that I honestly would have had the audiobook produced first because I have some friends with audiobooks, and they said, a lot of people just don't have time to sit and read, but they will listen to audiobook while they're walking, while they're working out. If it's a painter, he might be listening while he paints. A truck driver told me, oh, we love audiobooks while we're driving. They want to hear a human voice, versus, music. They've listened to a lot of music. They want to hear a voice. So I think if I had to do it over again, I would have produced the audiobook first.
Yeah, I think that could work. I mean, even my mother sometimes hearing the radio, some people doing some mysterious stories, telling so those stories sometimes. So yeah, I do think people still like that. So tell me, are you planning to go to an event or something to promote yourself in person?
Well, I'm a bit shy, to be honest, about just because I feel like, again, this isn't really my story. I mean, I'm just the girl who can hear them, which I might not give myself enough credit. But so I don't know if I'll appear anywhere just yet. I might keep it on the down low. I don't feel it's my personality, but
I understand. And,
Yeah.
and regarding your friends, I think that if you keep it humble, I think they'll be okay eventually.
Yeah. And now the house, I don't really think I talked enough about the house, but this house has some mystique to it because it's a portal almost where they are able, the spirit, people, like anyone that visits our house, there's a spirit that comes along with them. And I'm able to easily hear what they have to say. So I also have to be careful with, I don't want anyone to really just showing up at my door asking about, somebody who had their dog Spot that passed away, what does Spot have to say? You know what I mean? I don't want to be outside mowing the grass and someone's like pulling over, waving their hands, asking me. So I'm staying anonymous for now.
I understand. So,
Yeah.
can you maybe share your social media that you'll be okay with people keeping tabs on your future works?
Yeah. So I have just like a basic website, thedeadmandrinks.com, which all of this, costs a lot of money. Doing like a website, all the book, it costs way more money than I'd ever anticipated to write a book. And so it's just a very basic website, but I do have my email. I'll put my email on there. And then I'm also on Facebook, just as Hey, Hey, the girl with no name. So anyone could contact me there. But I'm not big on social media. I'm just not, I know it's the way, but I don't want to spend like my entire day, looking at the computer and the phones and all that all day long. So, but yeah, Hey, the girl with no name on Facebook or thedeadmandrinks.com, which will have my email on there.
Right. So, well, thank you so much, girl with no name. I think that's enough for now.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. And then maybe another time, if I come back on your show, maybe we could do a tour. I could tour them around the house like I do in the book and show on the video, show them around the house because that is part of the story.
Oh.
Showing, the different. Yeah, I could do that. That'd be fun.
Maybe when the second book is ready, will that be okay?
Okay. Yeah, that'd be fine.
That way you can promote it too.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you so much.
We'll talk soon.
Of course.
All right. Have a great night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
The girl with no name was really a guest like no other. And we learned some things from her. As she mentioned, you don't need to be a graduate writer. As she says so herself, her background was with designing. You never know where life will take you. But through inspiration and some pressure from her friends, she found her voice and finally took the chance to try becoming a writer. You don't need credentials. Just a story and some courage enough to tell it is more than enough to become a true writer. Of course, studying the art is actually quite useful, not taking that for granted. And next, every person has a story worth sharing. Her final encouragement was that even if you never publish, write your story, your life, your experiences. They matter. So we always leave something behind for others to see, so they can learn after we are gone who we were and what we like. For someone as hers, with her experience, honestly, it's a very beautiful advice. Well, thanks for coming and joining us today. If you find this episode inspiring, like, subscribe, and share this video. And give Marky Books a try in the link below. Have a nice day and see you next week. Bye.